complex, much too complex, too complex, much too complex, too complex, too complex, too complex.
Good evening. My name is James K. Holder II. Some of you may know me as Sir James II, and I'd like to welcome you back to Not on My Watch. As always, I'd like to ask you to subscribe, like, comment, and share. I'd ask you to retweet this and repeat this. If you're watching, today is Thursday, November 9th, 2017, and we are acknowledging the 1-year anniversary to date of the tragic election of Donald J. Trump to be the 45th President of the United States. It's been a rough year, but it has not defeated us. We have seen much happen over the course of the year, and so just kind of briefly, I want to review a few things that maybe I think going into this time last year, it was such a shock. And over this time, we've been able to kind of reassess and recalibrate and figure out a little bit of a footing moving forward. So we've seen countless failed attempts by the Trump administration to repeal our rights to disenfranchise voters, to scapegoat and alienate and incriminate people of color, but specifically people of Mexican heritage and those who might have migrated to this country at some point in time in their lives. And so that is one thing that we've seen happen over and over again, this expansion of this ICE force, this deportation force, the vilifications of sanctuary cities. We've seen our global standing shift and slide, really avalanche down to nothing. And as a matter of fact, Trump is out of the country right now, thankfully, and that's something I always celebrate, but it gives him more opportunity to embarrass us on a larger scale. So we've seen Donald Trump weaken our foreign policy in many ways, but specifically, one that comes to mind is the pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. And as recently as this week, we've seen even Syria sign on to the Paris Climate Accord. So, we could talk about all the things that Donald Trump said he was going to do and then he did, but specifically, our standing in the world is undoubtedly lower than it was when we were once the most powerful nation and the president of our country was universally accepted as the leader of the free world. That is no longer the case. We've seen the media clamor relentlessly to absolve themselves of any responsibility for the tragic events that took place over their coverage of the 2016 election that has led us down this particular path. We've seen this immediately following the election, there was just this need to create and really promote this narrative of the white working class victim, the economically anxious, this whole Rust Belt scene of people who had been forgotten by their country and who Barack Obama scorned and ruined their lives, and the tragic policies of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton left them for dead. And really, ultimately, we've seen them not really relent on those things. We've seen it happen on the left and on the right, insofar as an attempt to waste and squander and take away voting power from what many would argue is the new American majority, which is young voters, women, specifically single women, and people of color. We've seen an explosive fight in the Democratic base. Many would categorize that, juxtaposed to my previous statement, as infighting. I don't really see it that way. I would say if you're a Democrat, a true blue Democrat who voted for Hillary Clinton, you're the base. If you're someone who claims to be a Democrat, claims to be progressive, who for some reason didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, or for some reason voted for Donald Trump, many of you out there claim to be Democrats, claim to be left-leaning independents, did vote for Donald Trump to teach us a lesson. I would say it's not infighting if we call you to the carpet for your nonsense. But that's neither here nor there. This fighting spirit has shown itself in many local and special elections. And, you know, there was some limited success early on. And really, there have been many gains in terms of seats from the Democratic side from the Republican side to the Democratic side. We've seen it all over in state legislatures and in, you know, not so much on the national scene until this Tuesday. We've seen what was essentially a blue wave that took over our 2017 election. We saw within that a fierce rejection against the white male dominant politics that ultimately obscured and took over the 2016 race. We have seen that women have come into a much more explosive leading role in our American political scene. And I'm particularly excited about this. One thing that we have also seen that we saw last year and we knew about but we maybe didn't understand it as well was just the amount of political chatter and chaos and obfuscation and distraction that was engineered by a Russian propaganda ploy and campaign to throw the election to Donald Trump and empower the GOP. Now, one thing is important to note that it has shifted a bit, and you've seen, maybe this is a shift, maybe it isn't, but we've seen more and more people on the left coming out at specific key times where we need a unified Democratic base to act and turn out and vote against certain legislation. We've seen these sort of October surprises again and again. Most recently, the bombshell revelation that Donna Brazile, who discovered nothing, has now come out and said that the Democratic primary was rigged against Bernie Sanders. You had Elizabeth Warren backing her claim when asked in an interview by Jake Tapper. Then you had Donna Brazile walking back her statements as soon as you had Donald Trump picking up and piggybacking off of her and Elizabeth Warren, whom he still affectionately refers to as Pocahontas for some reason. And now Brazile's walking the claims back as she's taking smiling photos with, what is that guy's name? Sheriff Clark. And she's making television appearances on Fox News with Tucker Carlson. I mean, this is someone who is essentially nutty in the brain. She's insane in the membrane. She has given up all of her, I don't know if she ever had a moral high ground, but whatever credibility she had when she took over the Democratic Party as a disgraced pundit from CNN. And now, mind you, CNN pundits are the worst, except, of course, Angela Rye and Charles Blow when they have him on there. But specifically, Donna Brazile was not really in great favor at any point when she took over the Democratic National Committee. And when she immediately, you know, within the last week, had used these stories and fabricated these lines to create this drama blaming Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama for the rigging of the election against Bernie Sanders, which has all been debunked, of course. It's just been kind of sad to watch, and watch her devolution down to the Fox News pundit level, which is really just selling her birthright for peanuts at this point. And I haven't liked Elizabeth Warren for a while, so the fact that she's now backpedaling on her statement, I think is also proof positive that she's someone who also cannot be trusted. Now, mind you, these Brazile and Warren statements came up right around the time of the indictments that came down from Mueller. We've been waiting on this to happen. This has been like one of the key sort of items that we have been holding on for on the Democratic side, because it's something that's going to enable us. It gives us leverage, and it gives us truth of what happened in our electoral process. All these things are connected. You also have Bernie Sanders sending out a letter to Democrats as a Democrat, even though he's not a Democrat, on the eve of the Northam election in Virginia. Thank God he won. Essentially calling for the abolishment of all primaries or closed primaries, and making sure that, you know, we had more caucuses, linking to a petition. Now, this person has not fundraised for Northam, to my understanding. Hillary Clinton fundraised for him. You had all these other big names who were, you know, establishment people working tirelessly to get this Virginia gubernatorial race in the column for the Democrats. Of course, you know, it was going to happen for New Jersey. So kudos to the winner of the newly elected Democratic governor of New Jersey. Not that that would have been difficult to do for anybody, because Chris Christie is officially the least popular governor of any state in the United States in the history of American polling for governors. This is according to Rachel Maddow now. I think he was polling at like 14% approval, which goes to show you that there's somebody out there who still supports nonsense. But I digress. Bernie Sanders has proven not to be a reliable ally, and if anything, he and his supporters have contributed to the culture and amplified this sort of white noise in the bot-verse that has been funded and fueled by Russia. Vladimir Putin's machine to weaken Democrats, to weaken our democracy. But the good thing about the women's takeover is that we're starting to see some coming to consciousness in the electorate, right? Yesterday, one of the big news stories, scale back. Tuesday, I half expected lukewarm results for Democrats, mainly because of all of the shenanigans that were going on in that sort of far-left assisted botverse. There were so many targeted, specific attacks on the movement that the Democrats were trying to create to get this blue wave in action that I really didn't think it was going to happen, but it did happen. And it happened on several key levels. And immediately following the successes of the Democrats on Tuesday, we saw which lasted the whole day, the hashtag Thank You Hillary, which of course echoes my sentiments in my birthday card and thank you to Madam Hillary Diane Rodham Clinton, who is really showing, I mean, her words are wearing very well throughout this whole process. We are seeing in real time that things that she predicted have proven to be true, things that she said have worn very well, and her popularity is rising back within the party. Or not within the party, but just within, I think, among the fringe voters who couldn't bring themselves to support her. They are now starting to realize that they were misguided in many ways. Unfortunately, some people are still left out in the cold, including Joe Biden, who as of today, in a memoir release, that he believes he would have beaten Hillary Clinton in 2016 had he run. Which is ironic because he dropped out in the 2008 race after being clobbered. He came in 5th place in the Iowa caucuses. Now we talk about caucuses favor white men now. You got Barack Obama came in 1st, John Edwards, of all people, came in 2nd, Hillary Clinton came in 3rd. All three of those people, performing above 25%. You had some other person who, I don't even remember this person's name, who performed higher than Joe Biden, who came in with a measly 0.9% from Iowa. Now, when a white man can't win Iowa in 2008, I don't know what there is to be said about his pitch for why he would have beaten Hillary Clinton in 2016 had he run. I mean, Joe, you need to hang it up, girl, okay? It's over. And Sanders, same. Both of you, not to be ageist, but both of you are knocking on that upper corner, I mean, if either were elected, they would be the oldest elected official or oldest elected president in United States history. So we already crossed that boundary. We crossed that off by electing Trump. We don't need to do that again. We don't need to beat ourselves again in 2020. So both of these guys, oh, and Bernie Sanders, who believes that even after monumental sweeping votes for Democrats on Tuesday, as of Wednesday, he was saying on Anderson Cooper that voters still don't like Democrats. And I'm just kind of like, how are you saying this when Democrats are winning? He's having to continually defend an indefensible position, one that has not shown itself to be true in any electoral results that we've seen over the last several years, including and starting with his primary run, which was a failed primary run. His ideas have not proven to be popular enough to win against actual Democrats. So that's kind of, it's unfortunate, but both of these gentlemen need to have several seats. And I would say the biggest takeaway from the cultural shift against, has been the cultural shift against sexual harassment. We have seen this amazing shift in the consciousness of everyone and their ability to publicly dialogue and confront sexual harassment. And this is something that women have been doing for obviously decades, but men, many of whom are still shitty, by the way, and are still willing to give predators the benefit of the doubt, many men are starting to turn around and understand that this is a huge problem and something that needs to be worked against full time. So we have seen just within recent weeks, the Weinstein scandal, of course, over the last couple of days, we've seen stories about allegations about Charlie Sheen and also Louis C.K. Now, we've seen it go farther from Hollywood right back into our politics with Roy Moore being accused of essentially raping or initiating a sexual encounter with a 14-year-old woman, 14-year-old young girl when he was, I believe, 28 or 38. So this is the guy, little gun, running for the Senate seat in Alabama. And it's just sad. This race is against Doug Jones. Doug Jones is the Democrat in the race who is a stand-up guy and separate from Roy Jones being an unconscionable bigot and disgusting person. I don't even think in Alabama that this scandal is enough to bury his candidacy, sadly. So I would invite you all on December 12th, if you're in Alabama and you're a viewer, December 12th is my birthday. So one wonderful present to me would be if you vote in Doug Jones as opposed to Roy Moore for your next U.S. Senator. And that will just continue and to build upon the success that we've seen in our blue politics. We have just been through a lot, and despite that, we've continued to persevere. We've made gains. We've had some losses, and I kind of just want to talk about a little bit of a few of the things that are going on so far. We can turn out and we can show up and show out and do all the stuff that we want, but we have to be very mindful and cognizant of redistricting and the role that gerrymandering plays in our politics, in the results of our votes. We managed to, make some headway on Tuesday, but the reality is across this country, we are still faced with rampant, racially motivated voter suppression that blocks out people of color and the elderly all the time. And there's so many different forms of it, whether it comes to the times polling locations close, whether it comes to the number of polling precincts within a particular area or a particular community. I've lived in this particular location for 7 years, over 7 years. I've voted consistently at the same polling location. It wasn't until after this, in the last year, they have shifted my polling location. They moved it farther away. And it just makes it harder for me to go vote. I, of course, have the means to either drive or take an Uber or, take the bus or walk. But I'm thinking for just the opportunity to vote for people who are older, people who don't have the ability to necessarily check where their polling location, whether it's changed. I never got an alert or an email or a letter saying that my polling location changed. There's just been so many dirty tricks going on, specifically in Atlanta, that possibly contributed to the results of the Atlanta mayoral race. And this was a big race down here. There was a lot of outside force. Of course, I'm happy to announce that Vincent Fort lost. He got trounced. He was Bernie's pick for the Atlanta mayor's race. Atlanta actually chose Keisha Lance Bottoms. This is the young councilwoman who is essentially the next incumbent for our current mayor. She's the surrogate for Kasim Reed's policies. Now, many, of course, tend to not like that sort of culture. We want fresh faces, we want new ideas, we want new energy in our offices. But really, I was heavily motivated to vote against Mary Norwood, who is the rich, of money, old white lady who's running because she really has nothing better to do with her time. She's run for mayor several times. She didn't even get the first spot this time. And when you looked at the map of the results, it was very clear that Mary Norwood would have been Buckhead's mayor. Keisha Lance Bottoms was the mayor for the rest of Atlanta. And I don't live in Buckhead. I didn't grow up in Buckhead. That's not my city. So I will be continuing to support Keisha Lance Bottoms in the runoff for the Atlanta mayor's office. And next, I want to talk about ACA sign-up. The Affordable Care Act is still a real thing. It's really real. And you've got to do your part to sign up. What's good news is that despite the GOP's and Donald Trump's targeted attacks to weaken this legislation, to weaken this service to the American people and provide us opportunities to achieve and attain and retain affordable health coverage, we've seen a skyrocket in the ACA signups in its initial months. Now, the GOP has not been promoting this. They have defunded the services around informing people about what the services are. I've been getting several emails, but I believe that to this time from last time, the enrollment within the program is up by 178%. So that's a very good thing. If you have not already gone on, it's very simple. You go to healthcare.gov and you sign on. You might, if you're already in the system, it's really easy to look for new plans, what's being offered in your marketplace for the next year. You sign up for a plan. You have until December 15th to choose a plan. And I believe once you enroll in a plan, you have until December 31st of this year to pay your first premium to enroll in it. And your coverage will begin on January 1st of 2018. So make sure you do that because that was one of the key things that we needed to hold on to going into this year. Effectively, because we are enrolling, we have an enrollment period now, this is going to really protect people with pre-existing conditions that might have faced challenges if the law had been repealed this year. What this allows us to do is even if the law for some reason is repealed next year, which is proving that this is impossible for the GOP to do because it's such a popular law now, it will give us the opportunity to at least extend until January 2019 on any new legislation that will move forward. And effectively what will happen is that if we continue this blue wave strategy and can win back the House in 2018, then we are no longer at really risk of losing this legislation, but only moving forward to something that covers more and more Americans than even the ACA already covers. So let's keep those signups going. Do that today if you haven't already done it. It will require that you had completed your 2016 taxes, which if you haven't done by now, you should think about doing that because you need to do that anyway. Speaking of taxes, our next and greatest hurdle, I believe, for the rest of the year is to overcome this dreadful tax reform bill. This has to be stopped because it is nothing but a massive wealth transfer from the 1% and the billionaire class from the middle class and really lower class to the 1% and the billionaire class. They are talking about getting rid of deductions for charities, charitable contributions, deductions to churches. They've already considered, they're planning to get rid of a $250 annual deductible for out-of-pocket expenses that teachers pay to educate their students. And this is just universal stuff. This is basic stuff. So keep focused on that. Call your representatives about that, because it is very important that that be killed. It needs to be DOA. And right now, I don't even know how much support there is in the House for that or in the Senate, but whatever it is, it needs to be stopped. That said, I'd like to thank you for watching another episode of Not on My Watch. It's been a long, hellish year, but we will continue to keep up the good fight. I want to thank you for fighting along with me, all of my friends to the show. If you'd like to become a friend of the show, I'd ask you to make a donation of $1 or more to the link above, which is www.paypal.me/JKH2. I'm thanking Donna D, Joan, Douglas A, Connie O, Sharon M, Elizabeth C, Dorian B, Lissa G, Aleena V, Carolyn G, Caitlin W, Joseph R, Megan S, Karen V. Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you, Eugene F. I have an anonymous donor that I want to thank. She knows who she is. Barry G. Thank you, Barry. Theresa L, Danielle H, Raymond J, Deborah T, Diana C, Gabby D. Thank you, Gabby. Sabrina F, and I want to give a special thank you to Nora and Chris from Strongtree Coffee Roasters. I took a week off last week after the Hillary Clinton thank you episode, and a few days after that episode, I received the care package from Strongtree Coffee Roasters, Nora and Chris, and it came with the most delightful notes, and it was very encouraging, and also lots of coffee. So thank you for fueling my addiction with your delicious coffee. Thank you for continuing to watch the show, all of you. And as always, I'd like to ask you to relax, relate, and resist. Thank you.
Too complex, much too complex, too complex, much too complex, too complex, too complex, too complex.